Hi everybody, it's Professor Snart here checking in. It's Thursday, February 1st, I think, when I'm recording this, first day of February. So we're at that turning point in our due dates, basically. So we're on that Thursday, the kind of main due date for everything in Unit 2, and then you have some time to finish up replies if you haven't gotten to those yet. And then we also turn around looking at Unit 3, not a unit where we focus on a genre quite yet, like short story, poetry, or whatever, but more just think about language and why we're writing and what all that stuff means, kind of a broader view of things, although we will do some writing, some specific genre writing in this unit. So again, you might just be getting used to the way that we can finish up kind of here, and then you almost want to jump into this while you're maybe doing that part. It all kind of depends on how many people finish here and can you get replies done, etc., etc. So just keeping in mind that we don't necessarily have to completely finish this and wait till Sunday before you're getting into our next assignment. Another quick reminder that we do have our first workshop coming up. It's still a few weeks away, but it's a fiction workshop, so you're writing a short story. You can jump into that unit now if you want to take a look at it. The assignment is fairly open-ended. There's no requirement about type of short story or anything like that, really. It's more the opportunity to practice some of what we've been learning as the course is unfolding here. But you really do want to be thinking about that now, even if you're just generating ideas, so that come the due date here, you're not scrambling to finish sort of this stuff up and then turning right around and trying to write a whole short story. So starting right about now, you really want to have our course going on, the unit to unit work, but also a sort of parallel project with your short story going on. And like I said, you can jump into that unit just to see the assignment itself, although again, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so in Unit 2, we did a couple of different things. Took a look at the rules of creative writing. Again, pretty generic guidelines that will hopefully give you some stuff to think about as you're doing your own writing as we move through the course. A quick quiz. Again, doesn't really mean much, honestly. The writing prompt exercise, which we'll return to in Unit 3, we'll take a look at in just a sec, where all you're doing is posting a writing prompt that you've been able to find on the web here, and then kind of the more important piece, building out your portfolio with a new page that follows the assignment here, kind of answering that question of why I write, but within the context of this the YouTube channel that collects all of the National Writing Project videos about famous and like not so famous people talking about why they write. So you're doing yours on your portfolio, but kind of in conversation a little bit or in the model of the ones that are part of this National Writing Project. Okay, so that brings us into Unit 3 then. Here we want to think about a couple of different things. The overall aim of the unit is to really get us thinking about the language of analogy or comparison, analogic language. So examples like, simile metaphor, so simile, that comparison that uses like or as. Metaphor, the same idea, putting two things into a comparison with one another, just not using that like or as language, but still inviting the reader to think about two or sometimes multiple things with reference to one another. So I'm just going to skip down to that part of the assignment here, and then I'll come back to the writing prompt one. Okay, so there's a couple of examples here, some video ones. This really super famous or infamous maybe one, the simile from Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. Like I say in the assignment, it's actually a pretty good simile and pretty evocative. It works on a lot of levels. But it exists in this, context that maybe you can take or leave, honestly. But it's a good example. Okay, so there's a lot of explanation here, but it's for a fairly straightforward thing. All I want you to do is find within stuff that you're already reading or own or have access to, kind of like a favorite or evocative metaphor, an analogy, or for most people, I think, a simile, a comparison that uses like or as. And of course, this is a really good example here, right? This big abstract thing, we're told, is like this very mundane, everyday thing. So the simile works really well because it takes this thing that's difficult to think about or sort of too big to even get your mind around, but it puts it in these terms that are much more, what I say, apprehendable. You can really kind of understand what that is. And so when we find our similes, we're going to actually try to use this structure here to break the simile apart and see how it works. And not every simile is going to work exactly this way, but if yours doesn't fit the pattern at all, you can't make it work, you might have found a different literary device. So we're going to find the abstract thing in the simile is being compared to, right, like the concrete thing, and it works really easily here. Life, the big thing, box of chocolates, little thing. And then what's cool is you can think about, you know, in the movie, it's like you never know what you're going to get. We can extend that comparison beyond, and it really makes our mind think about, like, well, life is like a box of chocolates in what way? You don't know what you're going to get. There's lots of different things in there. Some we like, some we don't. So the deeper you can go with the comparison, the more powerful it usually is. So that's what I want you guys to do, is find an interesting simile and actually put it into the formula and then explain how it works as a simile or as a comparative piece of language. The one caveat, though, is that, and truthfully, I can't really like police this, but I do have a good sense of when it's happened. Don't just go to Google and find some random simile that comes up in some search. Find one that's actually in a book that you own or that you're reading or that you can pull off your shelf or find in the library. So you don't have to read an entire book, but actively read for where authors are using this comparative language. That's what I want you to do. Don't just Google something from some famous book and throw it in there and then figure it out, right? So invest a little bit of time. Try to include some visual component, maybe the book jacket or a picture of the text, just to give us a sense of like what you are actually looking at. Post your own example and then reply to 4 more. So as usual, we have your own post that you're doing and then the reply part. So lots of explanation here for a relatively straightforward assignment, honestly. But because that analogic language simile is such a fundamental building block for us, it's really good that we take some time and find out how they work in actual writing contexts. Okay, so backing up to the start here, this is where we pull from the prompts that everyone posted in Unit 2. So we have this sort of discussion board split between the two. So you're going to, as you might guess, use one of those prompts, but you can't use your own. So find one that somebody else has posted and then actually write or create a short story. It's going to be fairly limited here. Or maybe a scene. It sort of depends on what the writing prompt is. But I'm going to ask you to do that in your portfolio page. So we're actually going to build out the portfolio here. So there's a walkthrough again of doing a new page, getting back into your portfolio, creating a new page. Just title it writing prompt or unit 2/3. Whatever, you can always change those titles later so you're not locked into it. And then just do what the prompt says. So this is a unit where we have 2 kind of equally valued things going on. So it's not like you necessarily want to completely finish one before you get working on the other. Do your best to kind of manage them both at the same time. All right. So by all means, and as always, be in touch if you have questions. If you have any technical things happening as you try to expand your portfolio here, be in touch with me. But again, notice that we have not just a couple of discussion boards to post to and assignments to do, but also a couple of different reply features, so using a couple different discussion boards. So a little bit more to manage than previous units, but again, hopefully you'll feel like you're beginning to assemble some building blocks for creative writing, but also actually put those into practice. Again, it takes a long time for this stuff to really sink in, so we're just making some inroads here.